Hi everybody, thank you so much again for joining me Knitting with Matt. This is our fourth video of our 5-week series. This class is brought to you by the Department of Cultural Affairs of Los Angeles, located here at the Lincoln Heights Arts Youth Center. For today's class, we are going to learn how to knit at a round. This will be us learning how to knit a beanie. In order for us to do that, we're going to need special supplies. For today's class, you are going to need a size US 12.5 circular knitting needle, which requires it to have this wire. You are also going to need a 1 ball of super bulky chunky yarn in size 6. You are also going to need 1 stitch marker. You will also need your trusting sewing thread and 1 pair of scissors. This part is optional. If you want to end up making this is for the very end, but if you want, you can also get a Pom-Pom maker. This is made by Clover. Okay, let's go ahead and get started for today. The first thing that you're going to want to do before knitting your actual beanie and actually casting on your stitches onto your needle for the first time is doing what we have done before, which is measuring out your head to make sure that it's going to fit this proper size that you want. For me today, I'm going to be knitting something for a baby. I'm going to make a child size beanie. Okay, so I went ahead and I cast on 38 stitches for my project. You might need to have a bit more if you were making it for yourself. But again, I'm making this one specifically for a small child. So, all right, so now you have gotten to this point where normally you would, have 1 free needle and then you would flop them over to flop them to the other side. In this moment, you're not going to actually do that. You're actually going to knit the very first stitch that you had cast on. So how that's going to work is currently you should have the working needle on your right hand still. So you're just going to continue. You're not going to like stop and then do this where you're going to flip them where it's going to end up on your left side. We're not going to want that. What we want is for the working needle to still stay on our right side. So now we're going to go ahead and just start knitting along just like normal. So for this particular project, I'm only going to do a 1x1 rib. So I'm going to go ahead and just start that just like normal. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1 knit, yarn over, purl, yarn over, knit, and that's it. That's exactly how you can join both those parts. Once you have knitted that first stitch, that's it. You've officially done it. Good job. So now I'm going to just continue doing my 1x1 rib stitch this entire time till I reach the very end. I suggest everybody do a 1x1 rib stitch first as the entire time for their beanie, just so that way you get a good understanding of like how that's going to feel. And the 1x1 rib is, something that we use on a constant. But anyways, let's go ahead and knit this along. I'm just going to go ahead and start knitting, and I will see you when we get to close to the middle. We're going to actually start doing what we call a decrease, but that's going to happen not until we're way later. So stick around, keep knitting. If you need to go back in this video and watch it again. If something doesn't make sense to you, like knowing how to do the 1x1 rib stitch, make sure you go back and watch the previous videos. All right, here we go. so we are coming to the end of the row here, and now that we have gotten all the way around once, now that we have cast on, you're going to want to go ahead and add that stitch marker that I told y'all that we were going to need. So this one little plastic one you're going to need. If you don't have one, that is okay. I'm going to show you a cool trick. You can actually make your own. So if you don't want to go out to the store and buy one of these like plastic, sometimes they're metal, just make sure you get one big enough for the needle size. If you don't have one and you don't want to go out and buy one fancy one and you just want to continue with the project and not have to worry about it, you can easily just make your own with some spare yarn that you might have just laying around. I tend to make these all the time whenever I don't have them on me. So you could just make like a little loop like that and just put it on the needle, just like that. Boop. So that's one way of doing it, but I do have these nice little stitch markers. They slide very well, so I'm gonna, oh, see, they slide very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my stitch marker. This is just to indicate where the middle line is at. You can also tell that by this little tail that you normally have left over. So now what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna continue knitting my knits and purling my purls. So that last one, this, which was the very first stitch that you technically cast on, that is, this particular stitch is the knit stitch. So we're going to go ahead and knit that. And there you have it. You just keep going in that round. That's why it's called knitting in a round. And now you can notice that that gap has officially completely closed now. There was like a huge gap when I was knitting that, and now it's gone. Poof, went away. And the reason for that is because now everything is officially tied together. Now what you want to do at this point, now that you have gotten here, you are going to start to notice that as you knit, it's going to just keep going and adding and adding and adding and adding. And that's what we want. We want to keep doing that. Now, I'm going to keep knitting this. I'm going to keep doing the 1x1 rib stitch the entire time. I'm going to be doing this for about, I'm assuming something close to about 10 rows since this yarn is pretty chunky. And then we're going to start doing decreases. So I will see you to where you get to the point where, and where you want to see it is somewhere close to, if let's say if your beanie starts here, right here, laying basically above like your eyebrows on your forehead, you're going to want to go ahead and get up the head about this much, so that way you can start closing it off. That way you have that option if you want to add that little lip or if you don't want to add the little lip. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and continue doing the 1x1 rib. I will see you all at, I'm assuming again, row 10. All right, I will see you midway through. All right, so I've officially gotten to the last row. I'm about a little bit about more than halfway, which is exactly what we want. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start doing what we call decreases. Okay, how to do a decrease. All right, first what we're going to do is I'm going to knit this very last stitch of this last row, which was a purl. I'm going to go ahead and yarn over, move the stitch marker over. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to continue doing the pattern as normal. The only difference now is I'm going to knit two together. So the first thing I'm going to do here, and how you're going to do that is you're going to insert the needle into the second stitch, not the first one. You're going to insert it into the second one and the first one. So I'm going to do this as slow as possible so everyone can see clearly. Okay. Then you're going to yarn over just like normal, and then you're going to do what you normally do, but just make sure you get through both those stitches and then slide that stitch off. And congratulations, after tightening it up a little bit, you have officially done your first decrease. Good job. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to just do that all the way around. Okay, all the way around. So now you're going to knit these two together. Knit these two together. And I'm going to do this again as slowly as possible so you can get a chance to see it. You're going to go ahead and insert that needle into that first and second stitch. Yarn over just like normal. Slide that stitch from the front to the back, and there you have it. Now we're going to keep doing this all the way around. Now, as you do this, just to forewarn you now, the stitches are going to get there's going to be a lot less stitches on your actual needle, which means it's going to get a lot tighter to do any work. So the best thing for you to do is find a midway point in the middle of where the wire's at, and just go ahead and push all and this is kind of how I do it. I open it up like that, and then I just push those stitches onto this needle. These are all the stitches that I'm going to be working with. All those are just on standby for now. Okay, so now we're going to continue doing these knit two togethers. Knit two together. Knit two together. And you're going to do this all the way around, okay? All the way around. All right, here we go. If you notice, I always make sure that the stitches are being not tightly like put together, but I'm just making sure that there's no like excess yarn that I have to tug there. And remember, again, it's going to get a lot tighter, so just make sure you're pushing those stitches on up your needle to make it a lot easier. Knit two together. Good. Okay, so I've officially done my very first row of decreases. Now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do again the 1x1 rib stitch, but that's it. No decreases, no nothing, just a 1x1 rib stitch like normal. So the pattern is going to go from now, as you're doing decreases, you're going to do one row of decrease, one regular row of 1x1 rib stitch, one row of decrease, one row of 1x1 rib stitch. We're going to continuously do this pattern until we have about 4 to 8 stitches left on our needle. I will see you at that point. All right, here we go. This is going to be now my knit row. Excuse me, my 1x1 rib stitch row. So you're going to knit one, yarn over, purl, just like normal. All right, I will see you at the end. Now real quick, as you could tell, it's getting a lot harder because as the stitches are getting decreased in each row, it's going to get a lot harder for you to do anything. So now what you're going to want to do is just do a double down. So you have one side already there, and you could kind of see it already wanting to naturally do this, but there you go. It's kind of like a W. Sometimes I do that. There you go. And I know it looks really weird, but it's a lot more comfortable to knit this way. I promise you, at least for me it is. Remember, it's all about comfortability. So if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, I'm so sorry. All right, here we go to finish. Okay, so there's a situation where you actually have one extra stitch at some point. If this happens to you, it's okay. Go ahead and just knit that last stitch, even though that you are technically on a decrease row. It's only if you have one stitch left behind. So I'm gonna go ahead and just knit this like normal. And then I'm gonna, there we go, slide that stitch on over. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just continue doing a knit row now. Okay, so now that we have gotten to this point, we're going to go ahead and do a 1x1 rib stitch. Here we go. Now, as you can tell, I'm trying to organize my needles. This is kind of how you're going to have to work with it as you get closer and closer towards the end here, because again, like I keep saying, it's going to keep feeling really tight. It's just no. All right, here we go. Oh. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to be doing is our very last decrease row. Okay, so we're going to just decrease one last time, and then we're going to, then I will show you what to do next. Okay, so now that we are doing, this is our very last decrease right here. There we go. All right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and move that stitch marker on over, And now what we're going to do is we're going to do our normal cast off just like normal. The only thing is that at the end I will then show you what we will be doing there. So first you're going to go ahead and knit one. And remember, you're still doing your 1x1 rib here, so just make sure that you know exactly what you're doing there. Okay, and now you're going to go ahead and do a cast off here. Make sure there we go. Grab the right stitch there. All right, so now we're going to knit, yarn. I'll go ahead and do another cast off. Great. This always gets so difficult to do when we get to this point, but it's okay. We're gonna make it work. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do another purl, yarn over. Great. Now, I have this stitch over here. It should be the other way around. Give me 1 second. Alright, let me get this around so I can do this cast off properly. There we go. And now for the very last stitch. And since this is actually, my stitch marker is going to get in the way of that, I'm going to move this stitch over, take the stitch marker out because you're not going to need it anymore, and now just do this last cast off. It should be technically a knit. So knit, whoops, do that again. Knit, and then yarn over just like normal. Awesome. And all you got to do is pull that last string on through just like normal. Make sure you cut your end first. Great. Now go ahead and pull that string on through. Oop. And there you have it. You have officially done your very first beanie. Good job. And just to show you, this is actually the wrong side. You're going to want to flip it inside out to get the correct side. So it should look like that. But before we do that, we have to weave in our ends and make sure we put and hide everything away. So just a reminder and a refresher. So if you forgot, make sure you have your trusty needle, sewing needle, and you're going to go ahead and thread that on through. And now we're just going to do, remember that very handy dandy motion to try to go ahead and get these into these stitches to weave them in there. Okay, so there's one set. Remember, you probably are knitting a bigger beanie if you're knitting it for yourself, and so just make sure you are remembering that this is just a small size. All right, so I'm just moving this around to make sure that that sits comfortably. You're gonna get close, very close to the end there. And there you go, that's one woven end down. And now, and just to let everybody know, you see how you have like this little tuturu? This little node you can actually get rid of pretty easily. It just tends to do that because of you pulling that last string on through. But once you weave it in, it's gonna go right away. So let me show you. I'm gonna weave it on the wrong side. Remember, this is the wrong side. I'm weaving it on the wrong side so that way people can't see your work. And on top of that, it's going to reinforce. So for this one, it's going to be a little different. You're going to want to go around, not straight up and down. So the best way to do this is just go from closest to, there we go, to the last row you just did, and then you're just going to keep doing that motion, but you got to do it in a circular motion now. There we go. And I only need to do that a couple times, so now I'm just going to go straight through that. Pull that string on through. That node should now start going flat once you pull it a little bit. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Just making sure that it was actually in. And once that's in, all you got to do is, again, do your nice little snip, snip. And there you have it. There's your first little, if you're doing the same size as I am, there's your child beanie. Remember to flip it inside out now that you've gotten that all taken care of. And there you have it. Your own little beanie. Okay, so if you are trying to create a pom-pom, you can use one of these to add it on there. I'm going to go ahead and make one real fast so that way you guys can see. The great part about this is that it's super easy to use, and the best thing for you to do is start from one end. So if you see how they're on two circles, or two half circles, excuse me, you're going to want to go ahead and start with one end. So I'm going to start on this side, and I'm just going to start wrapping this around. And that's all you're going to be doing. All you're doing is you're wrapping your yarn around this little contraption here, and then we'll end up making a pom-pom, and I will show you how that works in just a second. So I'm trying to make my pom-pom a little chunkier than normal. Not too crazy chunky though. Alright. Now you're going to go ahead and close the one side. Let me wrap this around real quick. There we go. And you want to get that as tight as possible because you want everything nice and tight. And then you're going to move this string to the center portion. And now you're going to just continue doing what you've been doing, which is wrapping, but now you're wrapping it on the other side. On the other side. Alright. I keep trying to make sure that this is relatively tight. Alright, I'm going to just go back to the beginning and make sure it's of this section, so I make sure that it's nice and full. Okay, and now, trying to make sure everything doesn't show. Okay, so now that we've done that, you're going to go ahead and close that on up. Go ahead and cut that string off, and now what you're gonna do, and this is the fun part, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and, do you see this little slit here? It's actually perfect enough for your scissors to get there. And remember, you're gonna want to hold this tight so it doesn't fall apart. All you're gonna do is you're gonna now cut down the center line here. Sometimes it's a little difficult because it's, if you've made it really, really thick, it gets a little hard to, you know, get the scissors on through there, but, you know, just keep trying. If I have any kids watching this right now, I would suggest you get your parents to do this part, just so you don't hurt yourselves. Alright, come on. There we go. There we go. Now you're just going to keep going all the way around. Just keep doing that. Just make sure you cut all of the yarn on through. All right. So now that you've gotten to the end here, actually trim that one a little bit more. And now what you're going to want to do is get an extra amount of yarn. I'm actually going to use this little spare bit of yarn that we had left over from when we were weaving. And then all you're going to do is, now you can see the center portion. Oop, make sure all of these strings are cut. So I'm going to make sure everything's nice and cut and clear, which it is now. So now all you're going to do is you're going to grab that extra string, and you are actually, let me see if I can do it at this angle. There we go. So now you're going to just slide that in to the center there. And now all you got to do is tie a knot in the center. I'm just going to pull that. There we go. So you get that nice and tight. And normally what I do is I do another one going the opposite way, just so to make sure that it's nice and tight and it's not going to fall apart. Ooh, like that. But the good thing is that it stood, so that's good. All right, so now here comes the fun part. Now all you're going to do is separate the center, the two pieces, away from each other. Come on. I know you super poofy today. You can open it up to release. Open it up to release. Come on. I know you're stuck on this one little node. There we go. So now you're going to open up to release, and there you have it. You have your actual pom-pom. And what I normally do is I fluff it out a little bit to make sure that it's nice and poofed out. The last thing I do is I'm going to go over with my scissors give this a nice little haircut so that it's all nice and even. Because I like it when my pom-poms are even. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Again, this is optional. But I personally like it when my pom-poms look nice and even. So, here we go. Yeah, so now. That's just so that way we can make it look as clean as possible. Yeah, there we go. That's a lot better. Okay. All right, and just like that, you're officially done. Thank you all so much again for joining me this class, and I will see you again next time where I will teach you how to do cable stitches. Thank you so much and take care.